I went into this month 3 books or nearly 4 books behind on my reading challenge. Now I'm 1 book ahead because I managed to read 7 books. Hey book lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books and Me. Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up, and October was a very good month for me. If you saw my September wrap up, you will know that I read 1 book. And this month I managed to fix that, get back on track with my reading challenge, and I read 7 books and I enjoyed pretty much all of them. They were all really fun reads. I have written reviews for all these books on my blog, which I will link to below if you want to know more about them and hear more of my thoughts. So let's get into it. The first book I finished this month was The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, the 3rd book in the Chronicles of Narnia series. I went into this book knowing absolutely nothing about it because I hadn't really heard of The Horse and His Boy. You know, it hasn't become a movie and I just sort of didn't really know much about it because I feel like it is one of the underhyped Narnia books because it was released out of sync with the series and everything like that. But I really enjoyed it. It takes place in the lands south of Narnia, Archenland and Calmarine. And it follows a horse and a boy, obviously, who decide to run away from Calmarine and their masters to go to Narnia, where they'll be free and accepted. And before they leave Calmarine, they end up finding out that the Calmarine prince wants to invade Archenland. So they have to cross the desert before the Calmarine army does, in order to warn those in Archenland. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, I think it was, but yeah. Next book I read this month was Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers, the 1st book in the Mary Poppins series. I absolutely love the Mary Poppins movie and I've just never gotten around to reading the books, and I finally decided to because these new covers were released this year, so I waited patiently for them to come out so that I could get the 1st book, and I really enjoyed the book. It was definitely a lot different to the movie and I still really prefer the movie over the books. I did have a few issues with the book, one being that each new adventure takes place in a new chapter and it just felt like a series of short stories. They didn't really feel connected that much until like later in the book. I also found Mary Poppins to be a really cold character, and I think that's mainly due to the fact that she's just really nice and warm in the movie, and I was so confused at the end as to why the kids were so upset that she was leaving because I didn't really feel like they connected with her. But anyway, I'm still going to continue on with the rest of the series because I'm really enjoying it. And I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, I think it was. The next book I read this month was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs, the 1st book in the Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children trilogy. I was not planning on reading this one this month, but everyone was so excited about Library of Souls and I was just feeling in the Halloween mood, so I decided to pick it up, and I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it. It was just a really fun and, it was just a really interesting story, and I certainly had no idea that what happened at the end was going to happen. I sort of went in not knowing too much about what this book was about. I knew the basics, that Jacob goes to investigate the abandoned orphanage that his grandfather went to, and he finds out that the children who lived there were possibly dangerous and could still be alive. But I didn't really know too much else about it. I really enjoyed the use of the vintage photographs. They definitely added a really good element to the book, and I can't wait to continue on with the rest of the trilogy. I'm so excited to see where this goes, and I'm loving it. It's a fun read. And I ended up giving this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was The Dead House by Dawn Kurtajic, and I have a review video up of this already, so make sure you go check that out because I talk about it in a little bit more detail. But this book, first of all, it's really hard to explain without giving too much away because you have to go into this book not knowing too much about it, otherwise I don't think you'll enjoy it. But it is part psychological thriller, part urban legend about this girl Carly who suffers from dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder, and Carly gets the day while her alter Caitlin gets the night, and it is about the events in the lead up to the Johnson incident, which saw the high school burnt down, 3 people were killed, 20 people were injured, and Carly went missing. It's just a really fun, interesting, insane, gripping read, and I suggest you check out my review video and definitely go pick this book up. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. After reading The Dead House, it was so good that I felt like I was going to go into a reading slump literally within half an hour of finishing the book. So I ended up picking up a graphic novel, and that is Charmed Season 9 Volume 4. This is the final volume in the Season 9 collection. and this was really good. It definitely felt like a really good finale. My favourite part about this, which sort of redeemed it a little bit for me because I was a little bit lost with this one, was that in the final parts of the final scenes of the book, they had the classic charmed finale shot, and that was of the manor door closing, and I just thought that was a perfect touch in this book. It just made it really connect with the original series. I was a little bit lost in this because I couldn't remember really what happened in the end of the last one, but I managed to pick it up. I really enjoyed it. Again, it was definitely had that finale feel about it, and I can't wait to continue on with season 10. I highly recommend these graphic novels or comic book bind-ups or comics, however you want to read them, to Charmed fans, because they are just a great continuation of the series, and yeah, you have to check them out. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then the next book I read was a Halloween read that I was planning on reading this month, and that was Printer's Devil Court by Susan Hill. Susan Hill is the author of A Woman in Black, and if you've heard of Woman in Black, you've probably heard of the 2012 movie adaptation starring Daniel Radcliffe, and I have to admit that movie was hella scary. So I went into this book thinking it was going to be a relatively creepy, ghostly read, and I was kind of disappointed. This book is meant to be a gothic horror book, and I totally got the gothic part of it, but the horror, not so much. It is about these 3 medical students at the turn of the century who are inspired by the story of Lazarus rising from the dead, and they decide to do some experiments to try and make it a real thing rather than just a biblical myth. And they end up experimenting on some people at the hospital, and everything is a bit weird. And then they sort of get creeped out by what they've done and part ways for a couple of decades, and the main character Hugh returns to London because he goes off to the country to become a country doctor. He returns to London to the hospital where he once worked, and he's kind of haunted by the experiments, and they kind of haunt him until the day he dies. It sounds like it's going to be like relatively scary, but I didn't find it very good. It was literally just a one-go story, and I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I feel like if you're into gothic literature, you'll enjoy it, but if you are after a ghost story, you probably won't find it here. Finally, the last book that I finished this month was Show People by Gilbert Mant, and as you can tell, I've got sticky tabs because this is part of a research project I have just started working on, but this is a relatively comprehensive history of agricultural shows within Australia, mainly New South Wales, and the formation of the Agricultural Societies Council of New South Wales, and it just sort of goes over shows from the mid-1800s through to the 1980s, which is when this book was released, and it goes over, like I said, the history of just generally country shows within Australia and the Agricultural Societies Council of New South Wales and their formation and what they've done. And then it also looks at all of the shows that were running during the 80s, and look back at their history. It was really interesting. I found it really enjoyable, especially because I am involved with the agricultural shows scene. And yeah, I definitely recommend, if you can find this book and you are interested in the topic, to definitely check it out. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. So they are the books that I finished this month, but I have also been reading some other books, and I'll just go over them quickly, but I'll talk about them more in my TBR. The first one is The Accident Season by Maura Fowley Doyle, and The Royals in Australia by Julia Ryden. Like I said, I'll talk about these more in my TBR. So that is it for today's video. I'm really proud with how many books I read this month, and I hope that in November, even though I'll be busy with NaNoWriMo and everything, I hope I can still read some more books and keep on top of my reading goal, because now I'm 1 book ahead and I don't want to fall back again, especially because we're coming up, you know, November, December, where it's a little bit hectic with all holiday stuff. But anyway, make sure you follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook and Instagram, because I post there pretty much every day. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. I have new bookish videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and obviously over this weekend I'll be releasing a few wrap up, you know, end of month videos, and I've got some cool videos coming up within the next couple of weeks. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow with my November TBR. Bye!